before we get into this podcast, I just want to say my guest today is Mo. This podcast starts off a little bit slow because we had some technical difficulties. I had to cut a little bit out because of some distractions. I didn't cut any content out, just, minor problems. We had to start again, stuff like that. So yeah, it starts off a little slow, but it does pick up, and hopefully you can take some sort of value from it. I think it was a very productive conversation. If you know Mo, he's done 2 before. He's a sports journalist. In this podcast, we talk about all kinds of, how to grow an audience and how he grew his audience from, zero, and his process. He's also a great writer, and there's a lot of writing tips you can take in this podcast. So hopefully you learn something and you can implement some of the stuff he talks about. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy and you take some value. Enjoy the podcast. All right, so Mo, what's going on, man? Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
What's been going on since we last were on this podcast?
I've just been doing work, to be honest. I've been at uni, gaining experience, trying to develop my contacts. That's about it, just working, same old really.
So so you have 1 more year left of university.
Mm-hmm.
What is the options, afterwards?
I can go straight into work, so I can go into employment, whether that's full-time, part-time, freelance, whether it's news or online or print, I don't know yet, I'm not sure, but combination of both, I'm not sure. Or I can do a gap year, I don't know, I could travel, or I could do my masters if I want to continue education, I'm not sure yet, I don't know.
Do you need a masters to continue?
You don't need one, but I think it is desirable if you can get it.
What is that, like 2 extra years? Or
a year and a half or 2 years,
You can do that while employed though, no? At the same
I think
time.
you might be able to, but I'm not sure the logistics of how many hours work a week it is, I'm not sure. So
right, so would you prefer to work at a traditional newspaper, like one that you buy at the shop that's printed out every day, or would you prefer, to do online? What you do now, more of what you do now?
I mean, because I've been doing online since I started, I started my own blog, so that was how I originally broke into what I was doing. Obviously, I'm more proficient for online, so most of my content is tailored for online reading, but I think I can do a combination of both if that was an option. It's no problem. I can do both.
So, you talked about last time a little bit how you started just from your blog. How did you go about growing that blog from zero? Because I'm assuming you just started with nothing.
Yeah.
How did you go about going from 0 to the numbers now? Because last time you were on 6-7 million or
I think it's just a general continuation of, because I didn't know how to spread the word, how to get it out there. I just felt like social media, and back then there was Google Plus, so I used that. I used Twitter, I used forums, I used loads of different places where I felt that it'd get significant reach. It would go and people would be like, okay, I'll read this kind of, because I wouldn't just limit myself to one team or one league or one sport. I'd cover a lot of different sports, a lot of different teams, a lot of different athletes. So there's something for everyone really, and I think that is just a case of sharing the work, doing it as consistently as I could, and that's it really. I think
You said about lots of people read it and different for different people.
Yeah.
So do you think when you start, it's better to go obviously you started with football, and did you start only on football? Do you think it's better to start in one niche per se, or do you think you could go and do more variety? So obviously now you do not just football, which is the main, you would say the main sort of thing of your work, but then you also do tennis and you do occasionally F1 and basketball stuff. Do you think it's better for someone who just started to focus on one, or just do whatever they want?
I mean, I think it's important that you find your niche, something that you're really passionate about. So for me, what I'd say is, when you're really starting out, I think you should just do one. I mean, that way you can kind of develop your readership from there, and then once you've gotten to a big enough place where you can say, okay, this isn't just what I do other stuff as well. I think that they'll kind of gravitate towards you, if that makes sense. So they'll know that, okay, this guy is knowledgeable about, let's say, basketball, but he says, I don't just do basketball. Basketball season's over now. I do tennis too. And then you're like, all right, I like tennis. Let me go and see because you know that person has quality because they have, they're gonna gravitate towards them. So, yeah, I think initially do one, but try and build it up so it's not just one string in your bow. You have four or five.
You have like a variety because, let's say if one of your let's just not say a sport, but if you write about something and that niche drops in popularity or people just stop caring, you're going to be left out in the with nothing basically for all your hard work. But if you can, I say it's a lot easier to grow when you do one thing. If you focus on one thing at the start. Yeah. But if you look at most of the major, content creators or journalists and stuff, they always branch out into other stuff. So when per se, we use KSI as an example. We used to do FIFA. FIFA started to die slowly on YouTube. He branched out slowly into music and stuff like that. And people watch just for
I think with the example of KSI, FIFA was already becoming more mainstream, and he didn't want to just be known for FIFA, so he did what he was passionate about, so comedy and music. And like I said, once you have that base, whether it's readership or viewers or whatever, once you have that base, people that say, okay, I like this guy, I like this content creator, I like this person, doesn't matter what you do, they're gonna go and look at what you
have a base of fans that will watch anything you do basically.
So it could be fans, it could be readers.
Oh yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because I feel if you just make content on one thing, and like I said, if that thing starts to die, you start to become irrelevant. I'll use another guy, Myth, obviously Fortnite streamer. He started when it first came out, Fortnite was popular. He was the second biggest guy, averaging so many views, and then as more people started to come in to the community and started streaming, he really gradually started to drop off because people only watched him for his gameplay rather than his personality.
Yeah, because like I said, it's one of them. If you develop a sense of who you are on camera, or because in Myth's instance he's on camera, so he's not really much of an entertainer. He's more of someone that is good at what he does, kind of thing. So people don't if I compare him to, let's say, Nick Merckx or Tifu, people watch them because of their personality, not because of what they actually play. So in his instance, it's a bit although obviously his views have dropped, that's because there's so much more competition for views. There's so much more competition for people's time that they watch. So obviously it's going to be difficult. But yeah, I think as long as you kind of know within yourself what you want to do, I think it's not really that much of a problem. There's always going to be competition for stuff. So
another example would be someone like Neymar. I don't think he's the one of the best, as in top of the world.
It's all about how you market.
He's one of the most popular guys, if not the most popular guy. I'd say probably after Cristiano Ronaldo now. He's right up there. Every week he's taking a picture of a new celebrity, and it's marketing, like you said. He knows how to brand himself, and if you know how to build yourself into a brand over just I'm just the football guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you mentioned quality content. Obviously when you started, I'm sure your articles weren't great. If you read your first, probably anywhere from 10 to 100, and then your last 10 to 100, there will be a massive difference. How did you go about, because obviously it took you a prolong almost of 10 years to get to where you are now. Mm-hmm. How did you go about starting from this point where your articles weren't great? How did you improve and keep the drive to improve?
For me, the way I went about it, because I was good at English in school, I think that kind of helped me a bit because my vocabulary was good. I knew sentence structure and all that. I was able to, even though I might not know everything, even though I might not be as good as someone else who has more experience, the way that I'm able to convey my opinions or my analysis or whatever it was, I was able to do it in a way that someone could say, okay, yeah, this is good, this guy has, he's got potential, this guy he knows what he's talking about, kind of thing. So I think I didn't really, or at the start at least, I didn't really ask too much for help. I kind of tried to steer my own path in a way until I got to a point where I was comfortable enough to say, okay, if I go and pitch this to someone, I can ask them for feedback. So obviously you can read it and then tell me what you think. How do you think I could improve? How do you think what went well? What could be better? So I think, especially when you're first starting out, I think it's important to try and like I said before, know who you are, like know what you're trying to provide, whether it's content or whatever. So I think, especially when you're starting out, it could be quite daunting, but I think you can't really think too much about it because people aren't going to help, or they're not going to be as, as open to helping you if you have not as much as where I am now to where I was 5 years ago.
I mean, it's one of those situations where it's like, if you let's say you have a moderate following, a guy who just started, you're going to be less likely to want to shout him out or to give him any publicity because you don't know how committed he is or how long he's been doing it. You don't, like, if you read one of his articles and you think it's not great, you know, you're not going to want to promote someone who's not putting out probably on the same quality as you or stuff like that.
Yeah, because ultimately, whatever you put out, whether it's your own or someone else, it's kind of like a barometer of where you think that person is. Because whether or you're not, you're indirectly endorsing them in a way. You're saying, oh look, go and look at this guy's content, or look at this girl's content. This is what I think of it, blah blah blah. Like, to someone that follows you or someone that knows your stuff, if I go and shout someone out, they need to be good, kind of. So you need to know that they're committed and they know what they're talking about, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's important too. So like I said, when you're starting out, I think it's important that you don't try too much to get other people's feedback. You can, obviously, it's important to do that, but you need to like find yourself, know within yourself, this is what I want to do, and try and like learn it by yourself at the start. And then once you get to a point where it's like, okay, where am I going with this? When you'll know, like, I'm sure it's quite cliche to say, but you'll know when you're at a point where you can say. And then once that happens, people are going to be way more open to you, asking them questions, asking for feedback, because people love that. They love it when people were like, oh, you know, John, I've been reading your stuff for 2 years, I'm a really big fan, could you tell me what I can do about this? And literally they will not all the time, but they'll mostly help you. But if you're just starting out, and it's like, who's this guy? Like, I don't know where he's been, I don't know who he, but as long as you have that kind of like evidence that you've been doing it for all that time, then, you know, I think that kind of like shows. So yeah, they'll be more open to helping you. Yeah.
I mean, well, like you said, people like their egos sort of, you know, stroked, I guess would be the word. Like if you go to them and you go, oh, you're one of the best, I've been reading you for so long, I've been watching you for so long, they're gonna feel more compelled to help you.
Yeah.
Especially if, you know, you do it in a way that's more, what can I do for you? In fact, because I think a lot of people when they first start out, or just in general when they're not big, they'll go to whether it's, you know, someone big in their community or already sort of made, and then they'll ask for shout outs. Like we said before, you're not going to shout out a guy who's not giving you any value as well, you know what I mean? You need to, like, especially when you start out, you need to just try and bring value to other people as well. Like, that's the whole point of content. Like, if you're making content that has no sort of value to somebody, doesn't add something, what are you doing? Like,
that's what I told you. Yeah.
Yeah, you did, you know. And it's like your articles, you know your fan base, you know what they like. I'm sure you've tested multiple different types of, you know, articles, and you've tried different teams and you've covered all sorts, and you know what works with your fan base. And I think people need to realise that when you go into something like this, it's not, I'll get it in a week or a month or even a year. You have to work at it for, you know, months. Like, I don't remember a lot. Like, when I started making YouTube videos, like, obviously consistently, it's not been that long, like maybe less than a year.
You start, like,
but the first video I uploaded was like 2012. Like, that's real, and that was just a silly video from like my DS for an achievement. But the first video I made, like sitting down doing something, maybe like 2014, and like I've learned so much from that point. Even though I don't have a big following, like I've learned so much at this stage, and every day, you know, you find new things to learn and stuff like that. So I think it's very important. But the main thing when it comes to content, like I said, you just need to provide value to somebody. Like, if one person thinks your content is helpful, then like you're on the right track. You know what I mean? And you're not gonna build it in one day. Like, you've been going for almost 10 years.
It's not realistic to. I think that's important to know as well. It's not realistic to just expect it to happen overnight. Like, even these examples of people that suddenly blow up, they haven't just suddenly done it. It's been years in the making. Like that guy, what's his name? The guy that does that chicken shop reviews. He's been doing that for 3 years before
the chicken connoisseur.
Yeah, he was doing stuff for like 3 years before it even came out.
You find one that works. Like Ninja, we talked about it last time. Ninja was streaming for like 7 years before he was the Ninja we know right now.
Yeah,
like most streamers were streaming for like months with no viewers until Fortnite. So it comes to like the stage where you find the one thing you're good at, and it might not take. You know, some people 10 articles, they get really lucky and maybe they get read. Some people make one viral, like I think Vine was a big one. People would make like one and it would blow up. On YouTube again, like there's not many people that make a small amount of videos and then they blow up. I think it's lucky for people to gain a reasonable amount in like year even. You know what I mean? So what constitutes a good article though? So for you, what are like your key elements when you're writing?
I mean, it depends on what type of article it is. So, like, if it's a news article, like if I'm writing a news piece...
What different types are there?
So, you have the news, obviously, which is paramount. I think everyone says, like, in the last few years, sport kind of was regarded as, like, a toy, kind of like a luxury industry, but sport it plays a big part in our lives whether we want to believe it or not. So, I think news is obviously the most important, and then you've got stuff like for different sports you might have like a match review or a match report. You have analysis of said event, so like I don't know, cricket or tennis or F1 tomorrow. You have the coverage of that event, so you have everything from previews to if you're there or if you're not, live commentaries, if you've got people in the office working. What else do you have? You have opinion. So let's say, for instance, tomorrow Lewis Hamilton, he's not going to, but let's say tomorrow first lap he spins out and he loses and he's raging. Monday morning there's going to be an opinion piece on why that's going to derail his title hopes.
Opinions are probably the biggest. You know? Like everyone gives their opinion on sport. Like all the talk shows, that's really what it is these days. Like give your opinion and then people think you're right more or less, or you just have a real weird, obsession with something. Like for example, Skip Bayless, who hates on LeBron. That's his like.
Yeah, but
his
everyone has
come
their
up,
agenda. Yeah, everyone
that's
has
his. That's why he's famous, just because he hates on LeBron.
Everyone has their sort of like.
Stephen A. is sort of famous for shouting at me.
Yeah, well, he's passionate and he can't really. It's quite rare to see people like him. So it's kind of like he's earned his way to where he is. It's infectious and it's quite humorous.
It's entertaining. Even if you don't know anything about basketball, you can watch him and be entertained because he shouts. So like, like I said, what is the process of writing an article? Like just a general article you would write.
Give an example.
So let's say you're writing tomorrow an opinion piece on 5 signings for Arsenal.
It's like a slideshow.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I do it sometimes. Like slideshows. That's obviously another example of an article type, because nowadays you're seeing them more and more often. So like Lampard's just gone to Chelsea now, you can say 5 youngsters that are going to break through under Lampard. So it's quite easy to make slideshows as long as you have the information, the knowledge, and you're able to apply it and present it in a detailed manner, so people that can just click and say, this play. But that's the thing, like with a lot of slideshows, they're quite clickbaity. So
I mean, they have to be. You have to draw traffic to your channel.
I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to make it like a one-liner where every person that you're mentioning is like just like one line, or is it?
When I go on these slideshow ones, I don't read the paragraph under it. I just look at the player and see who it is. I don't really read the analysis.
Yeah, but what do you read the slideshow for? Like,
if it's just like 5 transfers that could happen, or 5 NBA players that need to have a big season or something, I look at the players. I won't read their opinion. I just look at the players they say.
Why not?
It's convenience and it's quick. I can see, and I don't need to see. Like I guess it's like general what a lot of people do today. They'll read something and they won't read too much into it. They'll just Lonzo Ball has the most, like, for let's say most improved players. It's like Lonzo Ball. I think he thinks Lonzo Ball is going to be most improved player. Okay, and whether I agree with that or not, I don't know. I just move on.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, if it's from someone that I know is good, then I'm gonna read it. But I want to know what their opinion is. Otherwise, why would I be reading it? I think the notion of like just clicking on it and then seeing who it is and just dismissing it. I think that's why you see a lot of one-liners, two-liners instead of like paragraphs, which is what I tend to do more because I don't want to. What's the word? Like, not pollute, but make it worse, like how it is seen. So from your perspective, you see the slideshow and you just, oh, it's clickbait. But from me, I don't want it to be clickbait. I want it to be what it is, which is still analysis, but it's just presented in a different way, if that makes sense. So I'd rather write, you said 5 players Arsenal should sign?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd write 3 paragraphs for, say, I don't know, let's say I wanted Umtiti to go there. I'd say Umtiti number 5, and then I'd say why. So I'd say,
or would you give like a little background on what he's done in the past few years?
I mean,
and then
you can, that's quite self-explanatory. I'd say why he should be there, how much it will cost, why they won't do it, or why they should do it, and then the ramifications of him joining or him leaving, or him not coming.
So do you like prepare notes on articles, or
Yeah.
you have like when you're watching a game
a lot.
and you will make notes?
A lot of notes. I think when I was younger, I just like kind of had that kind of interest in, because if I watch something on the TV and then I'm asked to write 600 words on it tomorrow, for instance, I'm not going to remember everything that I've watched. So if I'm there and I'm on my phone, or I have a notepad that you have, or anything, like just a few minutes ago I was outside talking to the phone, like if you have that information, you can come back to it at a later date or later time. So obviously it's more convenient. So I think it's important to have notes. So yeah, I do have notes. I research a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I first started making YouTube videos of football and basketball, like it was like a year ago when I started like consistently with that Premier League. I think the first one I uploaded was Premier League Team of the Season review or something. I had no notes or anything, and then as I went on, I realized I miss out a lot of stuff when you don't have notes.
Yeah.
And then you'll edit it, or you'll read through it or watch it again, and then you'll be like, wow, I missed this, this and this.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be like, wow, that's not as good as it should have been, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, like, even now, the other day, I think on one of my videos, I missed, like, on the basketball channel, it was about the Indiana Pacers, and I missed out one of the players, like Wesley Matthews. When I looked at the roster, because they haven't updated it fully, Wesley Matthews was still on the Pacers, but he's actually on the Bucks. So I said that, and in the video I got it wrong.
Yeah.
And a lot of people pointed that out in the comments.
That's my point. Like, if you have notes, they'll not only will they guide you, but they'll give you more to talk about. So like, if you have 5 notes, you can branch out into those different topics to talk about, or to discuss, or to write about. So yeah, I think for me, that's always been the case. I think as I've got older, as I've got more mature, I think I write more, which is both a blessing and a curse, because if I have a tight deadline, then it's kind of like, because I'm kind of a perfectionist, I want it to be perfect. But if you write, especially when I was younger, I still do it now, but like on the whistle reports, you know what that is?
No.
So like,
like right after the game.
So like, let's say it's Man United Perth Glory, so they had a game earlier, pre-season. Let's say I'm there, I'm at the game, and I'm writing the press box, and someone has told me, okay, I want it to be filed on the whistle. So I have already, before the second half's even started, I've got 7 or 8 paragraphs in the first half. And let's say Man United are smacking them 4-0. I already have an agenda that Man United breeze through Perth Glory. But if it depends on what it is, how it is, it's a lot to take in. But I think if you present the information in a way that people can try and understand it in the best way possible, I think it's easier. So it just makes it easier for you to write that information at a later time. So in the second half, Man United are 4-0 up, and then Perth Glory go and make it 4-4. How are you going to change the narrative? Yeah, so I think it's important to have notes, whatever it is.
I think with notes, like you said, blessing and disguise. Like for you said you could have too much. I think you could have relied too much on them too. Like if you write way too much, you know, you might not have a specific topic in your video at this point. You know what I mean? Like, if you're focusing on Man United and you decide I'm gonna make it all on Rashford's performance, but then you have notes on, you know, you're throwing bits about Martial and stuff in there, and it, you know, it can get a bit all over the place. And I think, especially with video format, if you make too many notes, you're gonna like end up trying to read all your notes out rather than just, you know, sort of using them as a prompt, which I think is the best way to do it. But moving on, what is, like, how many articles when you started were you writing a week, and how many do you do now?
That's a good question. How many was I doing a week?
Like,
I mean,
if you right now, how many do you do roughly? Like one,
it depends.
3, 4, 5 a week.
I mean, because when I was just starting, I was doing everything. Like, I'd try and like get a couple out a day, whether it was news or my analysis on whatever it was, opinion, live commentaries. Used to do that all the time. Whatever it was, I'd do a few a day so that people could see. Okay, this
so
guy's.
you were just putting as much out there as possible to try and get seen.
Yeah,
in any of them.
because like I said, it's all about if you show people that you're consistent, people are more likely to gravitate towards you as well. So back in the day, I used to grind a lot. Used to be pumping it out all the time, and it was fun for me back then. But now, the last few years, I've had to take more of a back seat in terms of like I can, but I can't do it as often. I can't pump out 4 or 5 articles a day every day because I edit as well. So I don't think it would be fair to, because I put the level of detail has also gone up several notches. I think I wouldn't be happy with the work in comparison to where it was before.
I mean, I'm sure your articles when you're writing 4 or 5 a day weren't the greatest quality of articles
obviously,
that was going out.
But obviously, I think a lot of them used to be news as well. So obviously now, I don't tend to do the news as much. I'll edit someone else's news. So I'm more of a features, long form, opinion analysis, match coverage type guy. Back in the day, I used to be more of a news, everything kind of wide ranging.
Yeah, but now you could also, with these like opinions, you don't have to write a whole article because you could just go to Twitter, and if your fans really care like what you think about Marcus Rashford's new contract, you could just tweet it out, right?
Yeah, because
you could just
it's
tweet out.
It's quite accessible. You can do it on your phones.
Exactly. Back then, like there was no. I mean, when did you start? Like 2011, 12. Yeah, like smartphones weren't like
Twitter.
Like
I was on Twitter in 2013.
Twitter and Instagram and all of that. I don't even think Instagram was around back then, and Twitter
wasn't where
like we were Blackberries back then. You know what I mean?
Like, you speak for yourself.
Okay, you had a brick.
Yeah.
You couldn't even access anything on your phone.
No,
so like right now, you could be anywhere, and if you see some news, you don't have to be at your computer to write about it.
Yeah.
You could just tweet it out about it or something like that as well. So obviously, when someone starts, you feel like writing all those articles helped you learn the processes as well, or was it just a case of try and get as much volume out as
I mean, it's a bit of both. I think it's important to try and like convey the point that you're dedicated to your craft, that you want to keep pushing it, but at the same time you don't want the quality of the content to drop.
Yeah.
So I think you need to be mindful of both. So what was the first one again?
I said that did it help you improve?
Yeah, I think I think at the start you just kind of want to pump it out, but once you take a step back and look, and maybe when you start asking people for help, let's say you ask Nejmi, or you ask your mum, you ask your friends, oh, what do you think of this, what do you think of that, and then they'll tell you like, oh, maybe you should have done this better or done this, and then you look at it back reflectively and you say...
I asked you to watch some of my videos before, and then you can tell me what is wrong. Like maybe I'm talking too much, or there's certain bits that aren't good enough. I think it's always good to have a second pair of eyes look over your work. I always think it's good to keep
also
trying to improve
as well.
I mean, yeah, definitely. If you don't want to have any grammatical or spelling mistakes,
which you do all the time,
in my description, I used to, but I don't anymore. I don't anymore. Okay.
All the time.
I don't anymore.
Sloppy mistakes. You just need to proofread. Just get it out.
Yeah, well, that's laziness.
Yeah,
that's
you are lazy.
So. Yeah, sometimes.
Most of the time.
Okay, buddy. So what are your tips for just writing an article? Like not like in terms of we talk about your tips for being a journalist and stuff, like just in terms of writing. Like if you're trying to get your opinion across, what are your tips?
I mean, it's important to like make it obvious what you're trying to convey pretty early into the article, because otherwise the attention span isn't gonna stick.
I think that's the same with YouTube. Like when I watch like tip videos or stuff, like on how to make videos better or how to grow or stuff, these guys always say what their video is about in the first 10 seconds, if not 5 seconds.
You kind of get a sense of if you're not hooked, then you're not going to watch or you're not going to read it. If you're hooked, then you're going to keep going.
If you're making a video or writing an article on Man United and the first paragraph is talking about some nonsense, and then you don't get into like your title's like Marcus Rashford new contract, does he deserve it? And then you're writing about some long history of Marcus Rashford before you actually start talking about the contract. No one's going to get to your opinions on the contract. They're just going to get bored after the first sentence and realise this guy's not talking about what I thought he was.
I mean, if you like I said, it's all about organising that information so it's succinct, but it's also like it's easy to, as well as being easy to read. You can see the differences in how they are, like in the article. So instead of putting the Rashford information about him, his debut and how he's performed and whether he deserves a contract, you leave that to at the end or the middle. You put the main thing at the start, then you talk about the context. Does he deserve the contract? Is he going to leave? Who could go and sign him? Does he deserve it? And all of that. Then you can talk about your opinion at the end. It's all about like, if you have 600 words, you're going to cut from the bottom, not going to cut from the top. So I think you need to be mindful of that and like leave the lesser important information to the end.
I think people have short attention span too, so if you're just rambling, people are just gonna click off, like you said before. And like again, with the whole clickbait thing, that's why clickbait's so prevalent. Like because people have looked at attention span and like because there's so much content. Like, I'm sure when you started there wasn't as many online articles as there is now. And same with YouTube. Like there's millions of videos getting uploaded. Like if you're trying to compete with all that, you're gonna have to have a good thumbnail and a good, a title that people are gonna want to click on. You know what I mean? And that's same with you, because you'll trying to get clicks online. I mean, I'm sure your titles are like lies. You know what I mean? But you have to have.
That's another thing. Like you can't get away with deceiving people.
You can't fish for clicks.
Because it takes so long to build a reputation. It takes 2 seconds to just destroy it all. So I think it's important you don't mislead or deceive, and that's another thing, because if I write an article on Marcus Rashford contract, I say, oh, this is my exclusive on what he's getting, the length of the contract, all of that. I don't write anything about that in the article. No one's going to read me anymore. I'm not being a credible source.
It's true.
Like you need to, like, it's all well and good fishing for likes or fishing for clicks, because you tailor your articles to the audience and you know what they want, but at the same time you need to give them what they need to see, not necessarily what they want all the time.
Yeah, so, like you said, if somebody's watching, like most people won't subscribe or follow you on anything unless until they've watched or seen a big part of your work. Like for me, I won't subscribe to a YouTube channel straight away after I watch one video. I might have to watch 5 or 10 before I subscribe to somebody, just to make sure that they're real deal. If you make one mistake, they're never gonna watch you again or read you again.
Yeah, because people, they remember. Like that's the thing.
Like they'll never trust you again. Like you lied one time and your title.
Credibility is shot. That's it, man. It takes so long to build your reputation, and it takes.
I mean, there's a ton of examples of people who ruin their credibility in 2 seconds. So what are the obviously you write articles, but you go to games a lot. Like you like traditional journalism as well. So what are the tips for being a journalist? Like obviously there's a lot of people trying to be journalists these days, whatever part of the news you're trying to cover. What are your tips for being one? What qualities does it take?
I think it's important that you find your niche really quickly. So like I said before, what you're passionate about, you need to do that. I think it's self-explanatory, but people kind of get lost in the source of,
they like to write about anything.
Yeah, you need to focus on.
If you're writing about football, you start writing about politics. People just like, what's wrong with this guy? I don't care about his politics.
At the end of the day, if you can mix them well together, there's a lot of examples of writers that know how to mix football with politics or whatever.
I hate when people
But
watch football.
if that's the thing, like if I know that you do that and you do it well, then I'm gonna read it. But that's the thing.
Yeah,
like,
but you would have a reputation for that.
yeah. So I think you need to like try and focus on one thing, and then once that's the case and you have your base, I think after that you need to kind of scale it back and like look and see what's important. So time management is important because deadlines need to be met.
I mean, time management is important to
Yeah,
everyone.
but you said what's important for a journalist.
And I'm assuming like when you first started and you started getting more serious. Not obviously when you first started and you didn't really have any, I don't know, you didn't have any expectations. But when you started to grow, do you start to allot time to when you had to write every day? Like, do you have certain blocks of time for your day where you were guaranteed to write at that time?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own like little time slots. So, like, let's say for instance, I work better at night. You might work better in the morning. Like, everyone has their own hours that they try and focus, and I think that's important because once you've kind of developed that, you know that okay, I'm in the zone now. This is the best time the optimal time to do my best work.
I think,
yeah,
like, if you're trying to pursue something like journalism or YouTube or Twitch or gaming or something, you need to have a lot of time every day. Like, especially because most people either have a job or at school or university while they're doing it. So you have to have a balance. If you don't allot every day between, I don't know, 7 and 11, that's when I'm doing my YouTube, for example, then you're just going to be inconsistent. And you're not going to be able to be consistent. But if you allot specific time and you stick to that schedule, you're going to be very consistent. And that's what makes, like you said, that's a big part of growing, because it's like a TV show almost. Like, if you're watching Game of Thrones and it's coming out every Sunday, and then, one Sunday it's not there, you're like, what the hell just happened? You know, no one's going to watch you or read you if you're just coming out with sporadic articles on a Monday, then 2 Mondays later there's another one, and Thursday, you know, it's not really good to be inconsistent, because inconsistency is just, I don't know, I can't think of like terms or phrases.
It's not really something that you want to. Yeah, so to answer the question, I think you need to be a good manager of time. You need to be consistent. You need to be determined in what you want to do. You need to know, like, okay, this is what I want, because it's not easy. Like, it might seem easy from the outside looking in, but when you look at the nitty gritty and it's only like kind of, even at the start when I started doing it, I didn't think it'd be this hard. Like, I knew it would be hard, but like I said, there's so much competition. There's so much that's out there that are trying to do the same thing you are. So I think it's important that you are determined, because if you're not, then it will show in your writing. For me, I think that's a big thing. I think if you're not passionate about what you're writing about, there's no point.
I think if you like you said, if you slack with the competition, if you slack, there's always some guy who's working harder than you underneath. Like, if you're working the hardest out of everybody, I think it was Kobe that said something like this. No one was ever going to outwork him, so he was always going to be getting better at his rate. But all these guys who weren't working before, they're never going to be able to catch up. You know what I mean? So when you decide to slack off, there's always some guy out there who's doing something. You know what I mean? Like, if you decide that you ain't gonna do anything today, there's always some guy who is, and then you're just gonna fall further behind.
Yeah. So I think that passion, you need to have it, because it will come across in your writing. Like, if you're making sloppy errors or you just don't have that enthusiasm for whatever it is.
If it's a burden, then it's not.
Yeah. Then there's no point.
I always say that about school. Like, if you're not interested in what you're doing, you're gonna slack off. Like, that's just how it is. And I think a lot of people get the passion confused. Like, they might have an interest in basketball and they start writing basketball articles because, you know, we all think our opinion is amazing, you know what I mean? So these people are like, why is no one watching me or reading me or whatever? And then they give up. But I think people sell this. Like, there's a lot of these internet, you know, I'd say gurus or whatever, who sell that if you follow your passion or you do something with your passion, you're going to be extremely happy and you're going to enjoy every day of your life, or some bullshit like that. But I think it takes a while for you to get to that point where you get up every day and you're ready to do it. Because at the start, it's always going to be difficult, because you're not going to get the recognition you might deserve, you know what I mean? So it's hard to be determined when the results aren't there. But I think, like, passion is cultivated over a long period of time, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think also, I think you need to read a lot. I think
Reading
you need
it.
to, especially with the news, like the way it is, 24 hours. Whenever you get at me, whenever you cuss me off, you say, "Oh, your sleeping schedule's messed up. Oh, this, and it's because like, never sleeps. Like news never sleeps. Doesn't matter what time it is, whether it's morning, night. Doesn't matter. Like you need to have like a sense of, okay, this is happening. Which one is more important? Which one do I need now? Which one can wait a few days? And then obviously the news cycle. What I wrote last week
It's
going to be forgotten.
You know,
And Ndombele left to Spurs. No one cares about it anymore because it's gone. That's the thing. You need to have that ready already.
That's what I say with YouTube and stuff like, because this is very similar to YouTube. What you do is just a writing form. Like blogging is essentially, you know, the writing form of videos, right? Or videos is the video format of blogs. And what was I saying? Like with the news cycle, when it comes to YouTube, I'm sure do you have articles that you've written before that could be read at any time? Like
there's timeless pieces like that, but they're few and far between.
I think in news it's very hard to. Cause I find it a lot harder when because I do the basketball channel and I'm talking about basketball news. Some of them get 0 views, okay, like 6, 7 views. Some of them get a couple hundred, some get a couple thousand. But you have to qualify, I think, before you start doing it. Like you could look. I knew when free agency hit and KD was going here and this. I knew everyone was going to talk about KD. So for me to get recognised in that, it's going to be difficult. And everyone's talking about this. So I talk about the Utah Jazz because no one's going to really care too much about them. They're not glamorous per se. They didn't sign any major free agents, and that got me a lot of views. I think it's the second most viewed video on my channel right now. And like that's good, sort of. I have thought about it, and you have to qualify your articles, like you said before. You have to decide what's the priority, and yeah, that video is not going to be relevant next year, or even in like a month. That video is probably not going to gain too many more views. And I think it's important to have a mix of what's going on now, like talking about current events, and then talking about or making videos that could be watched throughout time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because especially the long form ones. Like there's a lot of like an archive of different videos, different like articles that I can read that someone wrote 3 years ago you wouldn't know.
But it's still relevant today.
It still has relevance. Like obviously they're becoming less and less frequent, but at the same time, because they're long form, because they're longer and there's more effort, more research, more history into them, they're better reads because in 5 years' time, who's going to know about the striker that helped Dzeko and Wolfsburg win the Bundesliga? No one might want to know now, but in 5 years' time you might want to. That's the thing.
And with that, like an example of an article that will be relevant, like you could write the top 10 players all time or top 10 players of the 1990s era, right? That's going to be relevant all the time because that's never going to change those facts, right? So you write your opinion on that, people can view that all the time. So that's like, I just think it's important to have a mix. But with what you do, you have to always cover what's current to stay relevant. Because if you're just writing all these articles about history or things that you might think are relevant throughout time, you're not going to be in the news cycle, as you said. But
yeah, that's why, like I said, time management is so important because we're Saturday. We're recording on Saturday, right?
Yes.
Was it yesterday or was it Thursday that Koscielny news broke?
I just forgot about that.
No one cares. So you need to have it already there, whether it's the news.
Don't wait for
everyone,
stuff like that.
Because that news will get regurgitated. You need to have a feature, and you have to have a history. So you have to have everything ready. You need to be able to organise it and like structure it in a way that
it's a big one.
Structure it in a way that is so you can see the news, say, oh, we have reacted to this news that he wants to leave. Then in a week's time, what does it mean for the players that just joined the club, the players that are already there, like Rob Holding, like Cam Chambers, and then what does it mean for the next gen, the players that might want to come? I can if I come captain this team, I might leave in 5 years' time and go somewhere else. Like you need to be able to kind of factor all of that in. So it's a lot to take in, but like I said, that's my point. You need to be passionate because if you're not, then
I think you need to do things with passion. You have to do things with some sense of enthusiasm. Because if I'm sitting here and I'm like half dead, then no one's gonna care. Like you need to be enthusiastic with what you do. Like I said, I think passion's cultivated over time. You know what I mean? But you can still be passionate and have passion when you do something. But I think like building a passion for football, you build that over a long period of time, right? Like when you first started playing football, you were passionate about it. You know what I mean. And one thing I want to add with like journalism, like tips, when you say you need to be sort of extremely confident and pushy, like if you're going to interview somebody, you need to make sure you're at like the front of the line and make sure your questions get answered. Because in like what you do, if you're sort of scared or you're not confident, you're just gonna sit there and you're never gonna get noticed. You know what I mean?
Like for me, that's another thing. Like when I was younger and even now to an extent, like I'm very much what's the word? Like I like to keep myself to myself, but it's important to like know when to have it and when not to have it. Like to scale it back and look and say, okay, let me chill. And when it's time to show, like okay, you're passionate about this. So like let's say for instance, a post-match interview, right? Let's say I don't know. Wimbledon's on. So let's say tomorrow the final, Federer Djokovic, and I'm in that press conference and they're asking questions and the questions they're asking are poor, right? And I'm passionate. I've been watching these two since I was a child. Djokovic is one of my favourite athletes of all time, and I want to ask him a question. I'm not going to just sit there and go, he's too famous, I'm not going to ask him. But you need to be able to be confident in those situations, and that passion for what you want to do, which is going to go and translate onto what you write in the future, is going to help. So you need to be able to, it applies to everything. You need to be able to come across and, wow, that's a great question. What's your name? That happens all the time.
And that's building connections as well, because then next time you're in a press conference with Djokovic, he's going to realise, oh wait, that's the guy, he asked me that question before. And I'll ask you a question about connections in a minute, but one last thing I want to add to what you were saying before about sort of people caring about what you think and having the confidence. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that is too scared to even post their article online, you know what I mean, or post their video. For what? For some guy who they never talk to that follows them on Twitter that they will shout out. They're too scared for them to see it, you know what I mean?
It's difficult because
people care too much about their others' opinions.
You need to be able to switch that off, otherwise you're not going to last.
Because like, we both know a guy, I'm not going to say his name, but I full well know he's too scared. I'm sure he has a goal that he wants, but he's too scared to communicate it with others. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Like, he's too scared to tell people this is what I want to do. How are you going to get to this point without anyone knowing you're getting to that point? You know what I mean? Like,
it's a learning process. You learn it over time.
You're gonna have to one day. People are gonna find out what you're doing if you want to get there.
It is what it is.
But we'll move on. We'll wrap it up with a couple networking questions. Because as a journalist, I think in anything, your connections are pretty much everything. Because one connection could get you anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people give advice if you want to get into a certain field, you should DM a ton of those. Like if you want to be a rapper, DM all the rappers on Instagram. Try and just get into helping them some way, so you have a connection. I think networking is extremely important. And like I said, as a journalist, like we talked about with Djokovic and stuff, you build connections with these players, and then they're more likely to talk to you and leak you inside stories. Like with NBA, Woj, that guy is the ultimate networked. All the players know who he is, and he's like the premier NBA news guy. So, how do you build like connections in this day and age?
I mean, it's all about your experiences, like where you go, how you get there, kind of. So, like for instance, I want to go to as many games as I can, because whenever you're in a press box or your press room, there's so many people that you can see, that you can network with, that you can try and contact, that you find that have the same passions, the same goals, the same aspirations as you, and they want to, have that conversation with you. So I think it's important to talk to people. Obviously, that's a given. Obviously, and then networking is obviously where you get those contacts. So I think it's important you communicate your passions and what you're doing without necessarily giving it the game away in essence, as often as you can, because if you don't know who I am, I'm going to tell you who I am. I want you to know who I am. I want you to get to know me. I want you to read my stuff to say, okay, this guy is
good,
and then you just give me his email, give me his number or whatever, and whether we talk and I ask you for feedback or ask you for help or we help each other. It's kind of like you scratch my back and I scratch yours, kind of. So I think you need to, that in itself, you need to try and like, especially when you're starting out firstly, I think you need to try and see it from their perspective, like what are you doing to help them, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's not just a one-way street.
It's
it needs
all
to
about
be,
what can I do for you? What value do I bring to you? Because like I said, leverage. If let's say I'm starting out as a new journalist right now and I'm writing articles and I want you to a shout out from you, for example. What can I can't just go, can you give me a shout out? That doesn't benefit you, like I said before. And I think there's like 3 things you can give people in terms of what can benefit them. One is like you could pay them, right, to shout you out.
Yeah, of course. At the end of the day, money talks.
Another one is time. There's 3 that I think. One's time, of course. Like for example, if you want to be a rapper and you DM, I don't know, all the rappers, and you DM like Eminem, which is probably doubtful they'd ever reply to you. But if you DM all these guys and one replies and you're like, yeah, I'll do anything, man, I'll wash your car on the weekend or something. This guy is going to recognize you as the guy who washed this car, and then one day, maybe there's an opening somewhere, and he's like, you know what, this guy, you know, he can do something for me. And I think you need to offer other people something before you can expect stuff back, you know what I mean? It's like an investment.
Yeah, so I think that's important. You need to be able to convey, like I said, that word keeps coming back, obviously, passion. But if I'm passionate about something, I want to be able to show that. I want you to know. And if you know that, it's quite like, wow, like this guy wants to do this. So
yeah.
You're going to be more willing in the future to help me.
Exactly.
If I help you, let's say, whatever it is you want help with, if I can say, yeah, I'll do that, no problem, you're going to be more responsive. You're going to be more like, this guy's, he's showing an interest. He's showing, because it's all well and good being there and just be like,
you don't want to be that guy that's there that no one knows is there.
if you're just there quiet and not talking and just like by yourself and just then it's quite unnerving. It's quite like you're like your back is to them, like you don't have that openness. But if you have that and you're able to convey it, then I think people are going to be more, like I said, they're going to be more open to helping you in the future. And I think that kind of shows. So it's important to just keep doing whatever it is. Just keep, whether it's going to games, whether it's messaging people, whether it's emailing them, talking to them, whatever it is you can do. I think that's important, because otherwise, what are we doing here? You need contacts. So
yeah, contact is important, and like you said, like if you have an extra ticket and you offer it to another journalist, you know, one day he might feel free to do the same thing. And I think you should always be nice to everybody, you know, treat everybody the same.
Might be my new friend.
One day, some guy that you went to school with, you know, he might be some big shot guy who gets like this ticket to you know, the Champions League final, when maybe you're a journalist. He gives you that ticket, you know what I mean? Because he knows you're in that. Like, that's the power of connections. I think above everything, if you have the right connections, you could get anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, how long have we been going for, John Boy?
55 minutes.
55 minutes. I think
that's bad.
No, that's alright. It's pretty much the same length as the other ones. I mean, have you got anything else you'd like to say, or shout out all your stuff like usual, the articles, they'll be in the description. Twitter for like any latest opinions, you know, if you're looking for, you know, Mo obviously writes a lot of articles, but if there's certain things he doesn't cover in articles, he might talk about on Twitter, so you'll see all his opinions, not just on football, but on multiple sports there. Instagram, he's not really active too much on Instagram. Occasionally he'll post about certain things, but he's not too active.
For me, Instagram, I just see what people are doing. That's me. It's like what Twitter was 5 years ago. I just look at what they're doing and go, okay, might use that later, and then I just apply it. So let's say, I don't know, it's a photo shoot or someone is doing something, I see the comment, alright then. I use it
to pry it.
I use it, yeah. So
that's the best
not to spy, but yeah.
That's the best place to get connections on social media.
You're free, that's what you do.
Yeah, so yeah. Thank you to Mo for coming on the podcast once again. Yeah, be sure to follow him on all of that, and yeah, like and subscribe to the video, and like and subscribe like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next video.